the results from each polling unit, which is already contained in a sealed, poly bag or envelope, is then reopened at the NEC office in each county, and again in the presence of the party agents, and this time around, local and international observers. They bring out these results sheets one by one, read it out to check if there were mistakes. In some cases, it could just be addition of 1 or 2 or 3. Where they notice, and before any correction is made, they agree, and everybody gets a copy of the results from each polling unit, including foreign local observers. So anybody could help to point out and say, oh, there's a mistake there. It is when they are satisfied at the level of the county, at the NEC office in the county, that they have the correct results, that is then transmitted to NEC, in Morovia. So as it were, President Ware knew that, he had lost because it was a very, very, transparent, process. There was nothing to dispute about that. And for me, that is really the key lesson, in the sense that everybody did their job. I need to say something about the role of women in Liberia. In most of the polling places, usually you have 5 polling officials, 5 NEC officials. One is the presiding officer, one is the voter identification officer. Usually they would have 5. Usually you have either 2 of them women, in some cases 4 were women, in some cases the presiding officers were women, young people. And in any case, you didn't have voter suppression. Ballot boxes were not snatched. And this is a country that is under police. They don't really have many policemen in Liberia. I observed the election in the southeast of the country, where in fact the equivalent of what we call the DPO in Nigeria, or even commissioner of police, or in the counties, were going around on motorbikes. They didn't have the luxury of vehicles. The policemen at the police stations were not armed. In fact, in some cases where they didn't even have policemen, men of the fire brigade just stood there to maintain some law and order. Yet, nobody came with guns, nobody snatched ballot boxes, nobody fired bullets. So at the end of the day, democracy will work when, first and foremost, political parties are willing to make democracy work. Secondly, the people themselves, the patience. I will probably begin to rate Liberians as the most patient people in the whole world. In fact, the counting process is better imagined than discussed within a short time, like this. The process of, the ballot boxes are sealed when they bring them to the polling centers. Then they are sealed, they read out the numbers on the seal. After voting, they put them together. Even the counting process, they will first count the ballots and rearrange them in 50-50s before they start counting of those candidates. In some cases, because of the problem of infrastructure, where there was no electricity, they made use of lamps, and even we observers, we were not part of the process, but we had to put on, our own, the torchlight or the torch on our mobile, phones. So the environment itself, you could say that was an environment where if people want to perpetrate violence, would have been easy. So minus the fact that there were some tension, some arguments on the line, but you saw people, they just put on lamps, and yet nobody rushed in and grabbed, ballot papers and disappeared with it. No threatening of anybody. So that was what we saw. And I guess, like I said, it was in that context that President Ware had no choice other than to concede defeat, because doing otherwise will be plunging the country into another round of crisis. And we must commend him, because he is very much aware of that. He is very much aware of the fact that Liberia went through very, very difficult periods, not just in the times of war. They also had the Ebola epidemic or pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic also, ravaged and devastated the country. You see a lot of, young people, young girls, carrying babies. So it was a sacrifice that he needed to make. But I'm also trying to say that the circumstances was such that it would have been an anti-climate. If he had said he was not going to concede defeat.
Thank you. Indeed, thank you so much, Mr. Lanre Arogundade. Thank you for sharing your experience as an election observer on the Liberia elections. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm grateful.